Well, I think I might be about 2 years late for this one, but I decided to, I guess, torture myself by going back into the past from when, I guess, the big issues began within the MCU. And of course, I'm talking about season 1 of Loki, the only MCU show that managed to get a second season. So, of course, that's kind of the reason why I thought I might as well review this. I've only ever seen the first episode. After that, it is all a mystery to me other than from what I've heard. But from what I've heard, there is big problems within this show. A show in which the writer of the show went on to write Multiverse of Madness, the worst MCU movie at this point. Will it get worse? Probably. It probably will with writers like that. So, of course, because I'm going to be reviewing Season 2, I might as well dive into this, see what's what. And just from the first episode, the amount of issues is just, it's insane. It really is. With this episode, it's kind of front-loaded with all the major issues, and then the rest of it, one of the main reasons I don't think it's going to take us that long to get through this episode, it's just a long-winded conversation in order to justify getting Loki to the point that he got to throughout the MCU. That's kind of the idea of the episode. But as I say, it all just starts off with issue after issue after issue. And from what I know about the series, it just gets worse from there. It just gets worse by the episode. Just the amount of problems they cause. I guess not only the world building, but everything. Everything is just a shambles. And I probably have to guess this is where the big problem started. Other than, well, I guess WandaVision was before it. I suppose Endgame was really where the big issues came up with all the sort of time travel they introduced. So, of course, this show just makes it a whole lot more complicated. And it's hard. See, even after sitting through Multiverse of Madness and even Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, it's like I don't even know what the rules are. And looking at this, it's like even in here, I don't know what the rules are for time travel, timelines, multiverses. There's no set rules. But I suppose we'll just dive into it. As I say, I don't think we're going to be that long on this episode. It takes about half an hour, and then we're just into long-winded stuff that we don't actually have to dive that much into, because again, it's just justifying something, and they don't do a good job at it. But it all starts off in 2012. So this is, of course, setting up the whole variant stuff. My guess is, considering I'm going to be reviewing Season 2, I'm probably not actually going to end up having to review this, am I? That's probably how it's going to be. This is going to be, the first season, and then the second season comes out. It's essentially going to be something completely different. That would be my guess. But it starts off here with all the variant stuff. So you've got, they've obviously captured Loki. And again, all it reminds you of, remember when the MCU was great? Does anybody remember that? It's been that long. It's been that long of just trash after trash. It's just remember the good times. So yeah, we start off there, back where we want to be. And it's of course setting up Loki to get the Tesseract. Again, it already starts just contrived. So this is like what's taking place is the time heist. So you've got Tony Stark the Tony Stark in 2012 drops the case, and then the Tony Stark that goes back in time to retrieve the case, the Tesseract, that was one of the Infinity Stones. He grabs the case, and then I will go through this frame by frame, because I don't buy it. It's this locked case. So just watch this when the Hulk actually comes through. Right, so from that, the case just... Right, there's no way of that case opening. So even that, it starts off like, yeah, bullshit. Bullshit, this locked case, because the Hulk didn't hit it. It just fell out of the guy's hands. So, yeah, I don't get how that's happened, but we need this to happen, don't we? So that's how they've done it. Oh, a locked case magically opens. and then the Tesseract magically falls by Loki's feet, and of course that starts off the show, where he lands in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia. Now, I don't know why the Tesseract took him here, but it just does, for whatever reason. There's people about, even though the population of Mongolia's a massive country with 3 million people, like, all across it. So it's very hard to come by people, but there's just people in the Gobi Desert. But okay, whatever. But I guess they're just there to show us what happens, although they don't really show it in this. And of course, it's all they come in. So you've got the TVA that come in and say, oh, you're under arrest for committing crimes against the sacred timeline. It's like, and this goes throughout the entire episode, that you have committed crimes for something you didn't know about. They keep saying that the whole episode, that, oh, you are committing crimes against the sacred timeline. It's like, well, no. He hasn't committed crimes. Just the timeline has went in a way that you don't want it to. So the idea that Loki has therefore committed a crime, I don't really understand where they're coming from with that. So Loki's like, I'm a god. I'm not going with you. And I mean, you have to remember that Loki at this point is the Loki from Avengers that gouged a man's eye out. That's the Loki that you are dealing with in this episode. So he would probably just kill them. I don't think he'd piss about going, what I'm going to do is walk by you and let you punch me in the face. What? I don't even know why he'd be knocked out with a punch in the face. I don't know why that would do anything to him. But that's what they have happened. He gets battered by this woman. Yeah, okay, that's how that works. Against a god. That's how that works. Loki didn't think, no, I'll just kill you. That's what Loki from this era would do. He wouldn't be pissing about with anything. But instead he gets, again, they just, what they do with this character, at least in this episode and throughout the rest of the season, is, it's just like what we've seen throughout, going into Phase 4, the whole of Phase 4. Just every character just being completely assassinated. So he gets that embarrassing punch, whatever that was. And then they reset the timeline, which from what we gather in this episode is they essentially just melt an entire timeline away based on, a little change in the timeline that they don't want to happen. And a lot of it is like there's no way, with the TVA that they are able to handle some of this stuff. All this stuff, but we will get to that eventually. So they've taken Loki away to this TVA place. The woman, she gives the Tesseract to a receptionist, right? That a very important thing like that. I wouldn't be leaving it with a receptionist, but apparently powers don't work in the TVA. But even then, it's like, that's a Tesseract. What if someone was to take that outside of the TVA? Then it would still have. So you're leaving it with a receptionist. That's how the TVA operates. So he goes into all this stuff, and it just changes him. Just makes a mockery of him to the point where I'm just like, I already can't take him seriously. So he goes through all these scanners and stuff. Then he comes across this, and this is, of course, when we get the big exposition dump, that's kind of what the MCU does now, is we have all this information and we just dump it all on you in the one go, so you can't process it unless you actually sit there like I did and pause it to get all the information. But that's not unusual these days. Just a big exposition dump. It's like, no, that's too much information. There's a reason why in, whatever it is, any story, there's a reason why we give details gradually. So then it's easier to process them. But I guess you don't want people to do that because then they'd see how shit it is. But that's what they do. So it just says stuff like, let me see. Yeah, there was a multiversal war between who and how. I don't know. That's what's even more annoying, is all this exposition, and you don't even explain it clearly. You don't even explain. You just say, "Oh, timelines started a war." How does that work? How does a timeline start to have a war amongst themselves? I don't know. There was just a multiversal war. There was just a multiversal war. Timelines battled for supremacy. I don't know how any of that works. I don't know. I really don't get that. Oh, the timelines had a big scrap. All right. I'm trying to picture that in my mind, and I can't. Seems like just utter bullshit. But that's apparently what it is. They battled for supremacy, nearly resulting in total destruction of everything. So yeah, I'm just like, how does that work? How do timelines fight each other? I don't know. So it's all set up as, and now the TVA came in. There's 3 space lizards that dictate what happens in the timeline, in the sacred timeline. So there is now only, apparently, one timeline, again, dictated by space lizards. All this bollocks. Honestly, it really is. So it explains everything that works, and again, I just think, oh, it's more shite. That's how it comes across to me, where they just have it, oh, and you're a variant, and you went off the timeline. You've committed crimes against the sacred... No, that's not how crime works. Because the person that goes off the timeline is not doing it, like, knowing about it. They're not doing it on purpose, but they keep making out that they're guilty of something. So they even point out the ways, like, when you cause a problem. Let me see whereabouts it is. Because it says either, like, whether you've started an uprising or turned up late for work. So I'm like, so just because someone is late for work, that has no consequence to the timeline whatsoever, the TVA, right, we have to melt that timeline. We have to get rid of that timeline. Because Joe turned up late. He turned up late because he stopped to get a coffee. So you see why I have a problem with this is to believe that the TVA are big enough to run about and get rid of every single timeline just because someone stopped for a coffee on the way to work. I don't think they've got enough manpower for this. And you've also got to consider, within the timeline, it's a massive fucking universe that is endless. And you're like, nah, TVA will fix it. I don't think you've got enough manpower for that. I don't think you could ever have enough manpower for that. It's an entire universe. But it seems like they only account for Earth. So what about all these other places? It doesn't really come into it. They just seem to think, oh, timeline, it's just about the Earth. It's like, no, you got an entire universe to deal with. You haven't got enough manpower for that. It would be impossible. Impossible. You would be running about constantly. Because how many times would this happen? Plenty. And they're like, nah, we can sort it. So, yeah, I don't buy that at all. I don't know why you wouldn't just have it so, oh, anything that's of big consequence, we sort out. But if it's just someone late for work, why would we sort that out? But that's the way they have it for some reason. And you're dealing with an entire universe of different species, aliens, everything. Everything you can think of that is, been shown in the MCU, and even stuff that hasn't. You've got an entire universe to deal with. And you're like, nah, we got enough people to do that, to run around, because Jack over there stopped for a coffee. It's, oh, we gotta kill that timeline. Fucking hell. So, yeah, that's like already just big issues. Not really accounting for things like that you've got an entire universe to deal with. But I honestly don't think they're going to bring it into it anyway, especially from some of the things that get said later. So that's how it apparently works. You have to stand trial to figure out if you're guilty or not. It's like, well, why is there a trial? It's like that you've got no other option other than being guilty because you are here in the first place. So the idea of we must have a trial, it's like, well, the outcome's only going to be one way, isn't it? Because they did, in fact, verge off the timeline. So having a trial, there's no point to it, is there? Because the outcome is always going to be the same. You're always going to be guilty of it. And I mean, even the term guilty, it's like, guilty of what? Because I walked off the timeline that I didn't know about. I didn't know you trying to keep it in the way that you want to keep it. I don't know what you got to stand trial for. What is the crime? There is no crime. But they just treat it like that. So then we have this guy that gets melted by this guy because he had a big argument with another guard about not having a ticket. So he turns up here, says, I haven't got a ticket, and this guy melts him. So how exactly does authority work in the TVA? The fact that a low-down guard can make the decision to melt this guy when he had to stand trial. So just by having things like that, they're clearly trying to show you, oh, this is what the TVA is about. They disappear people. And it doesn't make any sense. It's like, why would this guy here have any authority to melt this guy? I don't know. I don't know, but he does it. You would expect him to be pulled up on that. They go, Dave, why the fuck did you do that? That guy was supposed to stand trial, you incompetent, dumb twat. But no, he just melts him. All right. So Loki shits himself, starts looking for a ticket. And at this point, he hasn't even tried to use his powers. It turns out later that you can't use your powers, but still, it's like, why would Loki not try? You know, it still doesn't make any sense that Loki even got brought into this place, considering he is a god, and the woman that captured him is just a woman against a god, and he didn't do nothing, couldn't stop her. And I'm pretty sure, did they not show, I'm forgetting now, did they not show in previous movies with him someone punch him in the face and it done nothing to him? I'm pretty sure. I mean, even Captain America struggled to beat him. Yet we're going, oh, yeah, no, this woman will beat him, though. Okay. We're not really going for consistency in this show. So we're now in 1549, and this is Mobius, not Morbius, but Mobius. I don't know why they had his name so close to Morbius. I don't know. So they're looking for someone that has been attacking TVA agents out on routine checks or routine timeline resets. So they're looking for, which of course, as we all know, because all of us know about this show, it's to do with Lady Loki, and even then, I'm gonna have a lot of questions about that because even that doesn't make sense. Just the idea of it, but we'll get there. We'll get there soon enough. So you've got Owen Wilson. What are you doing, Owen? You don't need this. You don't need it. He's just going over the attack. He sees this girl down the corridor, down the other side of the church. He like speaks in the language of wherever they are. I forget where they are. Where he says, "Oh, ignore my twatty guard. My friend is an imbecile." And then that guy comes out with, what does he say? I've actually missed some stuff. I've just realised. The guard that he understands what Mobius said, and he says, "I talk every language on the timeline." So then I'm like, oh, so you know every alien language as well? Because I see that as being impossible. And again, this just makes me only think that they are not accounting for the universe. They're just accounting for, oh no, it's just the Earth timeline. No, but the universe exists inside it. So that's just with that line there, I'm like, well, you would have to know every alien language to know like every language in the timeline. So I don't know if they are going to account for it later on, but so far I'm like, yeah, there's no way you speak every language in the entire universe. How many do we think that is? Trillions upon trillions. That's how big the universe is. So yeah, bullshit. So yeah, the one thing I did, because I think we better go back to it. I completely forgot it. So the timeline stuff, they call it, like when someone goes off the timeline, they call it a nexus event. And I don't know what the fuck a nexus event is. They don't say. They just say, oh, a nexus event. Yeah, a nexus event causes this or some shit like that. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I don't know what that is. But let's go back to where we were. So Mobius gets called back in with, like, because they've got this Loki. And that's, of course, a variant of Loki that they're looking for, as it turns out. So he goes and stands trial. They're like, how do you plead? Again, he's got no option but to say guilty. Because he went off the timeline. But again, it's like, well, he didn't commit a crime. He didn't do anything wrong. But they're just like, how do you plead? Well, it doesn't matter. You're going to melt me anyway. So this whole song and dance for a trial, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't buy it. Even when they say, right, you've been found guilty, they don't tell him what they're going to do to him. It's like, no, that's not how a trial works. I think they must have had the She-Hulk writers that day. So yeah, let me see whereabouts I am. Yeah, I'm on my second page. We've only got 2 pages for this episode anyway, so we're not going to be here much longer. This will be a very quick one considering how long my reviews usually take, which is about an hour. So yeah, he just says a god doesn't plead, and it's like you're calling yourself a god, Loki. You've yet to try and use your powers. I don't know what you're waiting for. But use your powers. You just said, I'm a god. Right, use your powers. But he hasn't done that yet. You would think that he would try already. So he says, I'm not guilty. The Avengers are guilty. They travelled back in time. Loki wouldn't know. How would Loki know they travelled back in time? Loki doesn't know that. Even when he's seen the guy that was Tony Stark, but in disguise, yeah, he couldn't tell that was Tony Stark. So that's, yeah, I don't know where he's getting his information from. But okay, I guess he must have watched the other movies. I don't know. And yeah, it also brings up, so, right, the Avengers changed the timeline. Why is there nothing said about them? Apparently it's just, oh, well, that was supposed to happen. And that's my guess for whenever we have a question, it's, oh, that was supposed to. So there's no real defense of it. It's just, that was supposed to, it's just, whatever we decide in the moment. That's all it really is. But that's their defense. Oh, it was supposed to happen. Right. Why, though? Why was that supposed to happen? You see how it just brings you to more questions? It's like, why that? Why did you let Thanos kill off half the population of the universe? Why did you do that? Yeah, none of it makes any sense. It's just like, nah, we don't want you asking questions, so, oh, it's just supposed to happen. Right, okay, we're just going to gloss over all that. We're not actually going to give a reason for why the Avengers were fine, but Loki wasn't. I don't know. So, yeah, they just find him guilty, and they go to take him away. They don't tell him what's going to happen. Which is generally in a trial, you are given, a sentence. Generally. But you would think they'd tell you, right, take him down, kill him. But they don't even do that. So so that's when Mobius comes in. He goes up to her at the desk. And asks to use Loki for information to get out of him. It's here that we get, where is it? Where you get Mobius look up at a woman Of course, that's the reason why it's there. It says, no, where am I? Where am I? Yeah, he says, I feel like I'm always looking up to you. It's appropriate. I'm like, can you be any more on the nose with that shit? I can only imagine he's just trying to get her to listen to him, but still, it's like, fucking hell, that's so on the nose. So she's just like, anything goes sideways, it's your fault. So then they show him, like, the whole of the TVA. And still, I'm like, yeah, I don't believe you. I don't believe that even this amount of people could you'd still have enough people to, across the entire universe, to look out for the timeline. I don't, it's impossible. It's literally impossible. You do not have I mean, how many people here are TVA agents? Have you got families? I don't know. I don't know because they don't go into it. It's just like, oh, look at this amazing city. We can apparently fix the entire universe, the entire universe's timeline. I still don't buy it. I'm just like, bollocks. This too. How big is the universe? Massive. Unimaginable. Can't possibly think of how big it is. You can't picture it in your mind. It's massive. So, no, even having 1 million workers on that, it's not enough. It's not enough. But that's what they're going with. Okay. So, yeah, we find out stuff that time passes differently in the TVA. Again, don't go into it, really. It's just, oh, time passes differently. Because Loki says, how long have you been here? It's like, well, even if time passes differently, you should be able to have a bit of a guess. You know, oh, well, looking by my age, about 50 years. I was born here. I was made to be here. You know, whatever it is. So we can go past the elevator stuff. So then, of course, Loki points out what we're all thinking, where he says, the idea that your little club decides the fate of trillions at the behest of 3 space lizards is absurd. Yeah, yes, it is absurd. I don't know why writers seem to think by saying that, it makes it not absurd. It's like you're literally pointing out the issue. That, yes, it's absurd that the idea of the TVA being able to decide the fate of trillions it's not doable. It is not doable. And yeah, they've got space lizards controlling it. You know, we all know where it goes later on, but at the moment, it's fucking space lizards. So just random stuff, I guess. So yeah, now we kind of go into the stuff where again they're trying to justify. What they want is right. We have at the moment we have Loki from Avengers. He's top notch villain. He's peak villain. He's not changing anytime soon. So what they are trying to get to is they want Loki from where he was in Infinity War. That's the Loki they want. They want the good version of Loki. They don't want the villain. So how they do it is, he sees stuff that he hasn't experienced that was supposed to happen in his life. And they seem to think that will do it. That's how we get Loki that we had, the original Marvel films, go on a multiple movie arc from villain to good guy. We had a massive arc that had a lot of work put into it. And you were just like, nah, we'll do it in an episode. We'll do it in 20 minutes. And he's a completely different person. So, no, a few days ago, he gouged a man's eye out and smiled about it. So you cannot get him from that point to being good that quickly. But they try to justify it by, he looks at stuff on a TV screen and then decides, yeah, I should be good. It's fuck off, you lazy twats. That's so lazy. But then again, it's Michael Waldron writing it, that also wrote Multiverse of Madness. So I expect nothing less than just, his arc is, he just sees something on a screen, things that he hasn't experienced, and he changes. It's like, no, even Loki at that point seeing these things would just go, that's bullshit. I didn't give a fuck about that. I'm going to kill you and I'm going to get out of here. That is the Loki that you're dealing with at this point. But they're just trying to speed through the process of getting him to Loki by the end of like phase 3. Phase 3. So that's the entire point of this long-winded conversation, is to get him to go, oh, I'm actually good now. No, he's not. He gouged a man's eyes out literally days ago. Days ago. He's not a good guy. He isn't, so you can't get him there. There is no way you can justify it with what you've done. You would have to have an arc in the actual show. So by the end of the season, he's changed. At least somewhat. He's not going to change that much within 6 episodes. You would need a little longer. But no, that would take effort, you see. So, yeah, that's kind of what this point is. There's not much to really talk about in it. From what I remember going through it. They just throw random stuff in there as well. Things that would actually be more interesting than this. You know, so far, the only thing I can say that's good is Tom Hiddleston's performance. That's it. You know, when he's explaining what he wants. Like, he wants to control, he wants to be the king of Midgard. It's his performance, and unfortunately, the writing's dog shit. But again, he's the only thing. Well, I'm like, yeah, the acting's good. But that doesn't make up for a dog shit script. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in. So that just goes on and on a bit. And then they start looking through some of the things that he's never experienced. So, yeah, he's not going to change. He hasn't experienced it. Why he would believe any of it, don't know. So then they come to like, it's this like DB Cooper bit where it turns out, oh, Loki was actually DB Cooper. And it's got no relevance whatsoever to what you're attempting to do. It's just like, we're just going to throw some random shit in here. Now, you could have done stuff like this with the actual show. Instead, you went this route. Unfortunately, you went this route. We could have actually had interesting things, because what most people thought this show was going to be going into it was, it'd be like, you know, Doctor Who, where he's going all over the universe on little adventures. Nah, we couldn't get that. Couldn't get something interesting. It had to be, you know, a load of shit. Oh, we want Loki to be Loki that he was at the end of his life. And we don't actually want to do it. But utter shite. I mean, it's already making me make sounds like I've got something wrong with me. That's what this shit does to you. It really does. We've already been going longer than I thought I would, but that's fucking usual, isn't it? But a lot of this stuff we can skip through because, as I say, it's just a long-winded conversation that doesn't do anything because none of it makes sense. The fact that you're not doing enough work to justify this change in attitude with Loki. You're trying to have him on an arc, like complete his arc in one episode. What are you doing? Oh, that's right. You don't know what you're doing. That's why we've got this. Oh, unbelievable. But this was the start of it all going downhill. We had Endgame, but again, that was kind of the end of that point. And even that's not as bad as this. Right, so where do we go? Because I'm just going to kind of skip to some stuff. So, yeah, the big whammon comes in and brings Mobius away. So Mobius goes to talk to her. He leaves, by the way, he leaves Loki in this place on his own, and Mobius also leaves behind his little time device. So what you can do with this time device is if you spin it, you know, Loki will skip forward in time, or if you obviously put it back the other way, it does the same thing the opposite way. So that's of course what Loki does. Because we need to have him get out of there in order to essentially destroy everything that the MCU went through from phase 1 to phase 3. We all know what we're getting to. You know, it's not a big secret, is it? You know, again, I'm just 2 years late on this. So Loki escapes. They all go looking for him. He comes in here and threatens this guy saying, "I'll turn you into fish." And the guy says, "What's a fish?" Right, I'm sorry. You're the TVA. You spend time exterminating timelines because someone was late for work. And this guy doesn't know what a fish is. Why? I guess that's supposed to be a joke. But I'm just like, why doesn't he know what a fish is? Bullshit. Doesn't know what a fish is. So Loki opens this. Well, he wants to get the Tesseract back. And this is, of course, when we run into big problems. We have Infinity Stones that are apparently used as paperweights. So what you're doing by having this scene is you're shitting all over the massive build-up to Infinity War. That's what you're destroying. That you're making it seem like a joke. Black Widow died for one of those, so that's why. Maybe don't do that, because now it makes everything else. Everything I invested myself in over the years, it was a waste of time because they're just using these things as paperweights. So again, they haven't thought it through. They just thought, this will be funny, won't it? It's like, no, it's not funny. You're literally shitting on not only, phase 1 to 3, you're also shitting on the entire audience with that. It's like we've all been invested in this. Not anymore. Not anymore. But we were, at one point, we were all invested in this entire saga. And they just turn it into a joke. That is Marvel these days, isn't it? Everything gets turned into a joke. They don't think things through and by having this, what it means. Again, because they're not smart. They are not smart people. I wouldn't say Michael Waldron is a smart person. He is fucking thick. So, yeah, after we've done that and shat all over what came before and shat all over the audience's investment, Loki then realizes, you've got more power than what I actually wanted. So you would think Loki at this point would just go, I'm going to take over the TVA, fuck you. Doesn't do any of that either. No, he decides to go back to his little cell and continues watching some of this stuff on screen, his mum dying and all that. So again, they seem to think that, him seeing himself, of which he has not experienced, that means we can now have Loki that is actually a good guy. They think they've done enough work for that. It's like, maybe you shouldn't have made the show like this then. Maybe if you wanted Loki to be Loki, what we know by the end of phase 1 to 3, maybe you should have had him go off course at that point, instead of going, now we're going to take him when he's evil and make him a good guy within one episode. One episode is all it took. Utter bullshit. Utter laziness. I've never seen so much laziness. But that's what you're dealing with. So he just sees all this. The big whammon comes in. They have a fight. I don't know where his energy was earlier. So he starts just using this time thing on her. So she keeps going back in time. And then, I think, he puts her right back in time. So she ends up in that hallway. Mobius comes in. Hold on. Whereabouts are we? So he just says stuff like, I don't enjoy hurting people. I'm sorry, but days ago, you gouged a man's eye out and smiled about it. So what are you doing? This is not an arc. This is just you going, he watches something on TV and he's a different person. He doesn't actually like hurting, but yes, he does. At this point, he does. You can see the enjoyment on his face. They even show it in this episode with the big smirk on his face, the big smile, while he is gouging a man's eye out. But in one episode, he's a good guy. Good guy. Even though that just happened literally days ago. So you see the big issues we're having at the moment. Already it's just incompetent and lazy. So what else do we haven't got much left to go. It's just Mobius just says, like Loki says, what do you want me for? And Mobius says, to hunt down you. So that's kind of what the whole thing for the season is. They want Loki to help track down another variant of him that is, of course, Lady Loki. So we get a little shot of her in this place. You get the TVA that go in, and I guess she kills them. She's off in the distance over there. Can we see her? She like sets them on fire. Yeah, so you don't get a good picture of her, but that's her there. So, of course, the question, the main issue I'm having with this is what is their excuse going to be for the fact that there is a female Loki? Because that's what is she from a different timeline? Even though there's only a sacred timeline? Because you would think if, say, Loki's mum and dad had a girl, the TVA would come in and they would melt the timeline, because that's not what Loki should be. He should be a man. So you see how having Lady Loki in it doesn't really make any sense, does it? Because that's not what... There's only one timeline. So how is it she exists? I don't know why you've waited this long to go, oh, we better knock this variant out of the game. What, this seems like something you should have done when she was born. You can travel back in time and do that, can't you? Oh, I don't know. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how they actually explain it. Because at the moment, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't think you can do that based on the rules that you have presented. If you're even to the point where someone going off for stopping for a coffee before they go to work, and you're like, we got to get rid of him. He's fucked up the timeline because he went for a coffee. Why would you let this be a thing? Why? If the timeline is already Loki that is male, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. But that is the first episode. Oh, I wasn't surprised. Again, this is I've watched this episode when the show first come out. Everything else, I don't know what's going to happen, other than what I've heard. But I haven't actually seen it for myself. But from what I have heard, it just gets worse from here. Just gets a whole lot worse. I imagine it will be with the more components they add on to it. That's just not going to make a lick of sense. Again, it's the same guy that wrote Multiverse of Madness. So I'm expecting the same level of incompetence and just not really thinking things through. And it's definitely a first draft, as was Multiverse of Madness, a first draft. But that's it for episode 1. I've got 5 episodes left to go. Luckily it's only 6 episodes, so it shouldn't take too long to get done. But we got through it. I was surprised we were here this long, but that's I say that every review I do because it just ends up taking ages. But again, most of it was just front-loaded with all the issues. Then we had long-winded conversation trying to justify something, and you haven't done a good job at it. It's just like, look, we want Loki to be like Loki at the end, so he just sees stuff that he hasn't experienced, and he goes, I'm a changed man at the end of one episode. At the end of one episode. At the start, he was a big villain. Yeah, lazy. Absolutely lazy. But I will finish there. I've got more work to do. I've got loads of stuff going on this month. But I imagine these won't start rolling out public, at least, until probably before the season 2 comes out. And then I will probably start rolling them out week by week, coming up to that. But that's episode 1. So I hope you can continue my journey back into just utter shit in the MCU.